All right, welcome to Animated Animators. I definitely wasn't just doing unique New York warm-ups. This is the podcast. It's a little bit more like a Twitter thread, a little bit less authoritarianism and Elon Musk. That's our second Elon Musk burn in the intro to one of these, and I know that we have a global reach, which
You're gonna
is
get blocked.
yeah, this is dangerous grounds. We have a very widespread audience, so it's all iffy. I am joined again by Nick Arbeiter and
Hello.
Chris Morgan, animation supervisor at PlayStation. Nick, you are a lead at PlayStation, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, a lead. I should know this by now, as opposed to whatever the titles they have over there are.
It's not like you've been over this with me before, sir.
No, I just say things and then I immediately forget them. I think that's
all
like
titles are just made
sign.
up.
It gets lost in
That's
the thread.
true.
It's okay.
Topic for today is remembering your coworkers' titles, and why you don't need to do it.
And that's all for tonight. So
thank you, everybody. You've been great. So I think if I had to say like an overarching theme for this episode is going to be social media. It's terrible, never use it. But also tips for networking and making connections in the game industry can be important. How you do that and how you present yourself on social media is very important, and it's very easy to mess up. So yeah, I'm gonna open the floor to both of you guys. Neither Nick nor Chris, I would say, really have a large presence on, I would say Twitter is like the first thing I would jump to, but they do have LinkedIn profiles. They both have Twitter profiles. Chris, do you have a Twitter profile?
I do, and I use it so little that Michelle had to message me like 2 weeks ago saying someone hacked my Twitter and was posting random stuff. So my first post in like 2 years was apologizing to everyone that may have seen my random posts.
So this is the podcast you come to get advice from. That's fantastic.
Shout out to Michelle.
Lesson number one, at least pay attention to your social media. And
Yeah.
Nick does have Twitter, but he doesn't have the same brain rot that I do.
I should get better about it, but I'm having this epiphany, quote
Better
unquote,
than me.
right as all of it's burning and on fire. I don't know. It's weird.
Right. It is a little bit of a hellscape right now. But I mean, for me, when it comes, this is why I jumped to, I'm such a follower. I follower Twitter. I jumped to, I believe, Hive almost immediately because I saw all the other animators that I know going onto this platform, because everyone was like panicked that Twitter was going to just disappear overnight, or that the servers would crash or whatever. And all that's still very possible. But I was like, oh, I follow all these amazing artists. I see all these cool demo reels. I get so many cool like tool tips and tricks from just people will post their work, and it's really important to see. I haven't really missed that. When I go to Hive, I kind of see it, but people are still using Twitter just as much. So
we have another chat so you can get me more in touch.
Yeah.
So I can find out what Hive is.
So it's funny. Hive is actually, so people were going through this, like, we're all going to jump to the next thing. And one of them was Mastodon, which is I genuinely don't know how to describe it, except for it's kind of like Discord.
It's a metal band.
Yeah. That's the best way to describe it. But it felt sort of like Discord, but there were like different servers for different people, and it seemed generally incredibly complicated to join. And there were like themed servers, so you'd have to join a bunch of different ones to do that. I'm sure someone who loves Mastodon would tell me like I'm wrong and it's much simpler, but it didn't seem simple. And Hive was just basically a Twitter clone, but not run by Elon Musk, and doesn't have those handcuffs on it. But it's also, I believe, a 2-person dev team.
Ooh, okay.
So 1 million people or whatever joined Hive, and I mean, that's asking for a lot from a very, very small group of people. So
I was gonna say I made a Hive, like Katie and I made a Hive, and neither of us. I don't know if she was able to. I can't like put a profile picture on it. Like I still, to this day, I still can't.
It's slow. It's definitely slow. Brought to you by Hive, animators brought to you by Hive. I gotta work on. I mean, we had like 60 downloads last time, so
Oh,
I
man.
mean,
In line for some
subscribers,
sponsors.
advertisers,
Ooh.
come on in here.
Now, what sort of cut will we get out of that? We can talk later. That's
Oh,
fine.
none. No.
Oh, okay, all right.
If it's me,
As long as
Undies,
we're on
I'm
the same
taking all
page.
that money. Yeah.
We're
just
just,
really
we're
want
just
to
going
say
to pay
that.
to Nate's chair. That's all.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Herman Miller. So neither one of you have a very, I would say, like a very, very active presence on Twitter. And when I talk about stuff like, okay, I use it to get all these amazing, I see people posting tooltips or workflows, or I see an idea from someone's demo reel. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Maybe I want to do something that has a spin on that. Do you guys find yourself just picking that up somewhere else? I don't obviously think your work is suffering for not necessarily having that, but you could just be finding it in other places.
I think for me, I play less of an active role in constantly searching for that stuff, and more as I see a gap in something that I'm currently working on, I'll go on the hunt. I don't think that that's necessarily like the way to do it or anything, but I think that where I'm at this point, like that's kind of what I do. I do enjoy just kind of browsing through people's demo reels and stuff like that. But I don't do it on Twitter. And again, it's more like randomly like I should look up some demo reels and stuff. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, I've seen like if I, I'll randomly get linked to like a Vimeo reel, and that sends me on the path of other videos that are on that list that are incredible. But yeah, Twitter just sort of pops up as opposed to actively searching it out.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead, Nick.
No, like you brought up Vimeo, and I remember distinctly, like especially like college and post-college years, like in early career in general, I could spend hours just on Vimeo, just like finding animations or going through like shorts and stuff like that. Like I would do that. Yeah, I would do that all the time. Or like during lunches, like lunch breaks, I would just go on YouTube and I would do nothing but watch like animated shorts. Like I just like, the 5-7 minute shorts, just I think CG Bros and whatnot would post a bunch, and I would just like add them to a list and then just go through those. I think in terms of like other social media, like obviously like we have our LinkedIns and whatnot, but in terms of like Twitter, it's funny, I follow basically like the same kind of people that you are, like, or that you mentioned, like other animators posting stuff or tools or cool reels, or when a game comes out, people are posting like their game reels for that specific show and project. So I see a lot of that, and I follow a lot of that. And then just artists in general, I just find a bunch of stuff like that on Twitter, like inspiration that way. But then it's funny because when I post on Twitter, I treat it more as like a social thing and less of like a pure professional thing, which is the complete opposite of what I do on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I do purely professional.
Right.
And I treat it as a professional networking platform. So that's kind of my dalliance into social media.
Yeah, it's funny because I do use Twitter for that thing in terms of the input. Sometimes my output is creative, like that kind of stuff, or I'll post the latest shot I'm working on because I need the dopamine rush of people saying I like your animation. But I will also treat it as a, like you said, more social. I pared down my Twitter from like following journalists and following politicians and being actively engaged in this society, and I just toned it down to just like game dev, animation, film, a couple of friends, and I've never felt better about it. Like I can go on to any news site and feel bad about the world, and I still do every morning. But Twitter is now weirdly a safer space for me.
It's kind of what I did to my Facebook, to be honest.
Oh,
so,
Facebook.
Yeah.
I love it. I love an odd uncle or aunt giving you just terrible stuff on Facebook.
Yeah. I don't want to pursue that conversation any further.
Brought to you by Meta, Animators.
Just in case any of my family members end up watching this.
I mean, to that note, though,
Listening.
I don't use Facebook for anything career related whatsoever, to be 100% honest. I will say way back, like again, like college and all that stuff, and Animation Mentor especially, there was a bunch of Animation Mentor like specific like groups that were made, you know, like even in the last format of like, you know, Facebook and all that, when it was kind of easier to use in a way and more straightforward. Like we would actually, like a bunch of people that would have class together and then go into the next term, and then everybody was all separated again. We actually did have Facebook groups to like keep track, and like once everybody was out and like doing their own thing or post, you know, classes, we would use those Facebook groups again to keep in touch. And whether it was to just like, hey, ask a question, something randomly broke in Maya, how do I fix this? Or I accidentally hit a hotkey and all of my graph editor curves are locked. How do I fix this? Like all that stuff that typically happens. Or hey, I'm working on a new shot. Can I get anybody's feedback? Like for a long time was just using the groups for that.
I think that
like,
using the groups for that's like a good use for it. Better than when you go to the Autodesk forum from like 2008 and you ask that question and some person 20 years ago kind of answered it, but they just disappeared kind of into the ether. There was like one response and you don't know what
you
happened.
Found the perfect, you're like, this person is describing exactly what I was going through. Someone answered it and that button no longer exists, and you're like, what do I do now?
Yeah. Well, in Maya 2009, guess what? That problem's fixed. You can do
yeah. I mean, I look at, you know, I follow some animation pages. I don't even remember which ones on Facebook, but they pop up with some cool like random demo reels and little factoids and stuff like that, which is cool. But I mean, I also found Nate on Facebook, so it's good for something.
That's right. I mean, that is bringing me back. You did.
Yeah.
Wow. What's that? Hold on a second. Now we need to dive real quick into that because that was, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you remember this better than I do, but you posted on a group or you posted on something that you were,
I think it was like a Full Sail
alumni thing, right?
Yeah, Full Sail alumni group with a job opening for Steamroller, I think, and you responded, and I think we just got to talking and went from there.
Yeah, that's it, kids. Social media, Facebook.
How you do it? Facebook.
Sorry, Nate. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, honestly though, like if I was gonna use Facebook for quote unquote networking, that would be how I would do it. Like exactly that.
Yeah.
Starting the conversation, like, and you could, for anybody listening, you could start the conversation by responding to whatever the post is. You know, it can start with a reply or two there, and then it can get moved into like DMs if it is something that progresses further or is more specific as you are like talking to a contact that way.
I would like to elaborate on this too, or at least push it into a slightly different direction that we sort of alluded to prior to this conversation. Facebook really is a very casual and personal space for a lot of people and not business related. So maybe don't send a friend request to somebody you don't know just because they went to the same school as you. Like I have chats with students all the time from Full Sail. I mentor people. I don't like to connect with people on Facebook that I'm not directly associated with friendship wise. So like that for me is LinkedIn. Like I'll connect with you on LinkedIn 100%. But like if we've never spoken outside of like a brief like typed up chat on LinkedIn, like I'm not going to accept a Facebook friend request. I'm not.
You don't deserve pictures of my family.
Yeah.
This is the bar is high.
Yeah.
To be completely honest, I'm even like, I know what you just said about LinkedIn, but like I even like get 50-50 with accepting people that I've literally never spoken to on LinkedIn, to be completely honest. That being said, if we've never spoken and you sent me like a message on LinkedIn first, and then we started a conversation, and again, this is purely, you know, professional, like animation related in some way, shape, or form, or studio related, like if you're asking questions about the studio that somebody's working in after, I don't know, a link to a podcast or something like that, like then I'm more inclined to accept and connect. If it seems like something where, I don't know, it's just weird to me to and this could just be me. I find it a little strange to connect with people immediately on a professional website like LinkedIn if I've never like I have no idea where you're at. And most of the time, to be completely honest, most of the time it is like a more junior or student, which is I'm not like, I don't want it to sound like I'm knocking that or anything like that. But again, like it's one of those things where if you reach out to me first, I would be more inclined to connect. But just going for it, I don't want anybody to be offended that I wouldn't. It's just that I'm trying to treat it like a professional network.
Well, and
And
here's the thing, like if we were in a networking event and somebody just approached you and handed you a business card, that's weird.
yes.
And I treat it the same way for sure. Like I'm not just going to like a blind like connect with me. 99% of the time I will not accept anything like that. But if it does come with a, hey, my name's blah blah blah, this is what I'm doing, trying to get started in my career. I think that you like have some information that might be helpful for me. I'd love to chat with you sometime if you're available, maybe connect, like something like that, an introduction. You don't just walk up to somebody and expect them to be friends with you or connect with you right away. Like there's a conversation to be had there. And I think it's the same on something like LinkedIn.
I honestly, it comes down to how do I feel that day? And that's not great. I
Yeah.
actually would like to have a system more like that. Like send me something. And I've had people message me, like private message me on LinkedIn in order to start a connection. And that's great. I actually had someone recently message me and saying, hey, listen, I know you're very busy. I'm not. Here is, if you are okay with it, I'd like to send you a link to my demo reel. Didn't send the link, just said, if you're okay with it, I'd like to send a link to the reel. And you know what? That one, I was like, you know what? Yeah, like absolutely. This is why I do this. This is why I talk on the pod. Like, I like giving that sort of feedback back to people. And just the way that the person asked was nice. But
yeah.
I'll be honest, there have been times when I get a request on LinkedIn and it's like, oh, you have like 10 mutuals. And I'm in a good mood and it's Tuesday and I just had my coffee and I'm like, you know what? Yep. Guess what? You're in the circle and the circle's massive.
So I do that too. And then sometimes those people are like, so I'm doing this project and I would love for you to invest in it or something. And I'm like, you ruined it. And then I just,
I am constantly asked if I can, like, hey, are you in a purchasing power position at your company? And I never am.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's a difficult job to have, but like, I appreciate that they think that, but I also don't know that they know what if you say senior or lead or even supervisor does. Like they're not doing, you, Chris, might be more involved in that decision to like, not at all.
I was
gonna say there's a software we need as an animation.
I mean, yes and
really,
no.
that's happening above you.
If we're talking about something like that, then yes, I could bring that up as something that potentially like, hey, there's this software that I think would be beneficial to us. It might make us more efficient. It could be really good for our workflow. I could bring that up to the higher powers, but I don't have a direct like decision-making power when it comes to that.
Yeah, and if it were me, I would have to go to Chris, and then maybe he could bring it up to the higher powers.
Just throw it up to the next rung of the ladder, you know?
Yeah. And sometimes it's not, it's not necessarily big things that are software ass. Like you have a lot of tips and tools and tricks in your repertoire that you pull out, and then you go to maybe a new studio and you're like, hey, what's your guys' version of this? Do you have this? What kind of subscriptions do you have? And maybe that is a conversation that you end up having. Half the time it's like, I really like using Keyframe Pro. Can we just can we figure out licenses? But yeah, I get those messages on LinkedIn quite a bit, like more often than you would expect for someone in my position. But that's brought us back to one of our topics being like, how do you interact with people on social media? That's LinkedIn, that's Twitter, that's everything else. So number one, don't just cold call people. Don't cold message them or cold request them. If you're looking to make your way into the industry, maybe ask a question first or send a message along with it. Looking for something specific, maybe in my case, it was someone asking if I could look at their reel, or just general advice.
I mean, honestly, what you described, whoever that person was that messaged you and said, "Hey, can you would you be willing to, and with your free time, look at this?" Didn't immediately send the link. Honestly, what a great person! Fantastic communication.
Right. And that's just me looking around my apartment being like, I like this. And no one's there.
No one's there. Yeah.
The cat does not care.
Cat wearing bandana, which nobody can see but us.
Also, and I have to say this, it was a much better reel for a entry level for game animation. Like you see a lot of, we've talked about demo reels before. There's a lot of, for gameplay animation, a lot of times you see people doing like acting shots and you want to see more like in-engine stuff. And I was like, you have this stuff and it looks pretty good. There's some stuff to hit, but it brought me to another. I actually sent the person this link, but I saw on Twitter, I think it was someone from Rockstar posted, "Hey, we're looking for gameplay animators. Drop your reel below." And I was like, okay, that's a great example of, I mean, they're throwing it out there for someone to respond to. And that's awesome that they're kind of widening the pool, like opening up the pool to other people. But it was also an opportunity. I sent the link to this person and I said, "Hey, like, by the way, it's for, I think, entry level or mid or whatever. That's what you're up against. Like, look at these reels and see what they have and see what you don't have." And that's who they're looking to look through 40, 50, 100, 200 reels and resumes, but the resumes will happen later. And that's what you're going to be up against. So make your decisions based on that. Like, take shots out, add shots back in.
Like, to piggyback off of that, I am a firm proponent of the mantra, "It never hurts to ask." You kind of just have to know how to ask, which kind of what we're talking about. And like, how you go, like, this is kind of like your first impression of somebody too, but like, it's not face to face. It's you messaging somebody out of the blue potentially could have an impact on your career, or at least help you get somewhere in it, right? So it never hurts to ping somebody about something like, "Can you look at my demo reel?" Or, "Hey, I'm interested about applying to a position at your studio. Can I ask you a couple questions about how it is there, or how you something like that." And treating, like, especially if it's something to that degree, asking it in a way where you're showing like respect for the person's time and position, but also, like, personally, like, still feeling like a human, like, not robotic about it, and just being honest. Like, I think it kind of goes back to something that Chris was talking about when he was talking about like what he looks for, like when people are asking him to review reels, and what he looks for in like a team. Like, just be honest in that initial like contact as well, because again, that is your first impression. And depending on how you come off in that DM or email or whatever it is, that is what, quote unquote, we are going to be seeing, and will dictate how we respond to it for the most part.
Yeah.
So
I also think that people tend to have a disconnect between how they communicate online and how they communicate in person. And I think that shouldn't be the case. I think that people need to understand that it's communication, no matter if you're behind a keyboard or not, and you have to tailor your communication to the moment. So if you're speaking to someone in a professional sense, make sure you're doing that, even if you're just typing something from behind a keyboard. It's important.
Yeah, I 100% agree. On the flip side of that, Chris, you had mentioned before that, like, how do you make yourself available to those people?
Yeah.
Is it just by responding to those things? Just obviously not willy-nilly. We don't just do connections with anybody.
No, it's funny because I actually have quite a few people that I'm in talks with on LinkedIn, that I'm reviewing, mentoring their work and stuff like that. And these are people that approach me in the correct way that we've been talking about, letting me know that they understand I'm super busy. And if I had the time to potentially look at some of their work or mentor them, they would love it. And a few of these people I've had regular Zoom meetings with to have these sort of quote unquote face to face meetings and discussions of their work and stuff like that. And It definitely, you have to pick and choose what you make yourself available for, unfortunately. Like, I wish I could be there for everybody that needs help. But I have my own life outside of work. And obviously that additional time that I spend with these people is taking time away from my family. So there's definitely a moment where I have to be like, okay, I have to tell this person no, or I'll let you know in the future if I open up, but right now I'm just super swamped. And honestly, most of the time people have been super receptive to that. So
Like, and like to that effect too, like it on the other side of that, if you are the one that's giving like you said, like the time to, I don't know, spend like a 20 half-hour video every so often, like video chat every so often, like if you're the person that's getting that from somebody, you have to respect that and understand what that actually means. Like that means a they see something, like in this case, you, Chris, you saw something that you are like, okay, this person, they reached out. I like how they reached out. I am willing to take the time to help them. On the flip side of that, you have to see that and receive it like, okay, I am going to go into this receptive, respect the fact that he's taking time away. I'm not paying him for this. This is purely, he's just doing this. So just go into it open minded, ready to just see what happens. And, like use that time to get your feedback and then ask your questions, like without taking too much of their time and respectfully so. But like, understand, like, that also means something good about you, kind of. So
Yeah, absolutely.
sometimes
If sometimes
sometimes.
if
I'll
you
elaborate on that
are
later.
if you're listening to this as a new you're trying to get a job in this industry, I don't want you to think that we are not like, well, and I'll speak for myself. I can't speak for you guys. I send these messages now to other people in the industry I send DMs to people, not out of the blue. Usually it's a mutual connection, but when I was trying to figure out like, hey, I have an interview at this place, I just asked someone like, hey, like, I'm not going to ask the HR person what the company's like. I'm not going to ask. I mean, I'll look at Glassdoor like we all do. But I would like to talk to someone off the record about what the company culture is like. I would like to ask, what was your interview like? Because interviews are always hard, but asking advice for people is not like, it's definitely not something that you want to avoid, or you're worried about stepping on people's toes. It's, as everything else in this industry is, it's communication. It's how you do it, and it's effective. It has to be effective, as opposed to just like scattershot, shotgun style.
Yeah, I totally do the same. And I think I'm fortunate at this point in my career where, I have a lot of close friends or people that I've worked with over the years that like know somebody that knows somebody that may be there already, so I have my ins to get that information out of people at this point, and be like, okay, what is it like at this place? Like, I know what they're telling me. What are you telling me? The person that's there in the trenches, and that is important because, um, if you are offered a position somewhere, they want you. They're going to make it shiny. They're going to make it look great. They're not going to tell you all like the deep dark secrets, and you sometimes need to get that information from people that are there and working there. And a lot of times, I mean, it might be great. People are like, no, it's great working here. You're good, man. You'll love it. But getting that is important. Getting that information.
And people will feel much more comfortable telling you the honest truth
Yeah.
in that sort of setting, as opposed to something a little bit more professional, I guess. And the one of the things that I thought was interesting about it was, when you leave a company, or many people leave a company, that sort of starts to take over as the way that you have connections throughout the industry, because you have 10 people who leave a company and then they all go to different studios.
Yep.
And then they're the one, like, those are the people who, and now they work at other studios, and then it's sort of, you work there for 3 or 4 years, and then you leave and you go somewhere else, and now you're the person who works at studio, the new studio, and all these other people. So when you make a connection on LinkedIn, that's not necessarily like, it is networking, but it's not the same thing as getting to know people.
Yeah, not at all. But it's still good.
Yeah.
It's good in its own right, for sure. Yeah, don't think that we're saying like, oh, it's not networking. Don't do
Right.
it.
Yeah.
It has its own positive results from that for sure.
Yeah, just don't be a dick online. Don't be shitty.
Basically, I mean,
And no, don't be a dick in general, not just
Yeah.
online, just overall.
Well,
don't be a
look,
dick.
I'm not gonna tell people to live their
sometimes it's
lives.
necessary.
I-
Not to backpedal, but I did
Yeah.
say in regards to
elaborate.
I wanted to elaborate on me saying sometimes to Nick saying it probably means something good if someone is taking the time to respond
Fair
to
enough.
you. So the reason I said sometimes is because I have worked with a handful of people, and yes, they approached me the right way. But after reviewing their work privately myself first, I realized that these people probably went to a school that just pushed them out just so that they had good numbers. And these poor kids, I'll call them, are coming out of school expecting that they may be in a position where they could get employment, but they were not given the proper foundation, and nobody actually took the time to spend with them to give them that foundation. And I know, coming out of school myself and being in that mindset, what that does for you in your life. So like I see these people that are like thinking that they're there and they're not, and I like reach out like, oh God, let me please give you like some sort of assistance. Let me at least try to help you build your foundation. So it's not always a good thing if I'm reaching out.
Well, no,
But
you
it
know what,
is, I
though?
guess, in a way.
I was gonna say that's not a bad thing, because to that point, I would like to stress that, like, if somebody's responding to you, like if somebody reaches out to us, I'm just gonna use us as an example because we're here. Someone reaches out to us and we respond, I'm not gonna lie to them.
Right,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
I
Mhm.
like I might not say everything, but I'm never gonna like, I'm gonna be real. And I tell people, like, listen, like, I hope you don't think I'm an asshole or anything, but if I give you a review, I'm a lead here. I'm going to give you a review as if you were working with me, so that you can know, like, hey, these are things I'm going to be looking for. You like, I don't want you to be upset if you get more notes than you were expecting. Like, I just want you to know these are things that we would look at and like we might call out. Um, and it's never to belittle. It's purely to be like, hey, like you were saying, like I would 100% say I was one of those people, not necessarily to push out numbers or anything, but like I was not prepared for animation,
Right,
like the field itself whatsoever.
right.
You know what I mean? Like I had to do more animation work besides that, but like I still like I got communication out of it more than anything, and I've used that ever since. You know what I mean? Um, I don't know if
Yeah.
I was like, honestly, just like it's honest communication. Like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, honest communication is what it's going to be. It should be both ways.
Yeah.
I have a caveat to that. Honest communicate in a one-on-one circumstance, I think it's important. When it comes back to social media and back to Twitter, if you are trying to make connections on Twitter with people in the game industry and you're looking for a job and you're following all these people, that's great. You are, what you post will matter.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you can, and look, that doesn't mean not post cat pictures. Look, like we want that. We all
They
want
can't
that.
look, and it's sad for them, but that cat is adorable.
We want that. It is even for people currently working in the industry. How you present yourself and how you act is everyone's making, for better or worse, a constant evaluation on this person that I see on, oh, I really didn't like that. And sometimes it's fair. Sometimes, like if you get into a fight with someone over movies, that's not really a good, but if you're trashing the artists in a movie, that's probably going, someone somewhere is going to see that and be like, but you know how hard it is.
All of this too, though, is like how you approach that. And it goes back to what I was saying before too, of like, just because you're behind a keyboard doesn't mean you're not communicating with somebody. So like, would you say this stuff to somebody's face?
Yeah.
No, then probably don't type it. Like,
Yeah.
Because you just come across like that. I don't know if you guys watched the Game Awards
I did
at all,
as much
but
as I
yeah,
could, but yeah.
there was like this 15-year-old kid who just snuck into
Oh yeah.
What was it? Was it the Game of the Year
Yeah, I think
award
so.
team? Like he just
Mhm.
snuck on stage when they were doing their receiving their award, and he ended up like talking into the mic for a little bit, and that's what you sound like when you
Right.
come across that sort of uneducated about games. I think he also rambled about Bill Clinton. So, by the way, last caveat: just don't talk about politics on Twitter.
Yeah, don't.
You probably agree with most people, but just don't do it. Like, it benefits no one.
Yeah.
Definitely a something I had to like, because it also just stresses you out.
Yeah, for no
I've
reason.
had to drop stuff before where I was like, you know what, I have a great life, I have a great job, I have a great time with my fiance and my cat. I don't need, like, why I'm upset for 30 minutes talking about politics with someone, and for what? Like,
That
my
you'll
time's
never
worth
meet.
more than that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good for
Block,
no one.
mute, move on.
Right.
I was gonna say, like, bottom line, if we were like putting like a final pin on it, it would be like, if it were like, if you like, when you pose this to me and it was like, how do you use social media and whatnot, I'm like, I'm gonna be the same online and offline. So like, what, like, if it comes to me, whatever you see online that is for better or for worse, that's me in person or on a video chat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the final note on Twitter, but it's social media in general, and this is a Twitter's main character. Every day on Twitter, there is one main character. The goal is to never be the main character. Just remember that.
Yeah. That's a good.
Don't want to
final
be
note.
dunking on people. Don't want to get dunked on. Don't be perceived. No, that's not good advice. But don't perceive me. But yeah, I look, social media, as with everything else, double-edged sword. It can bring you a lot, and it can negatively affect your career.
Taketh away.
About it. Yeah, taketh away. But I think that's about our time. Thank you, everyone, if you're still listening to this
You
latest
made it.
episode. You made it to the end for the Easter egg, which is, I can't think of one. I don't
You
have
got
an Easter
nothing.
I was gonna say I'm unprepared for whatever this Easter egg
Man.
is.
No, the Easter egg is Nick in a bath. It's been the whole episode. You've been in
Yeah.
this amazing room.
Yep.